UFC Fight Night, aka UFC Vegas 22. We have Derek Brunson versus Kevin Holland. Of course, Kevin Holland going to see if he can continue that streak with his first win in 2021 after coming off of a 5-fight win streak in 2020. Definitely one of the fighters of the year in 2020. Before we get to that fight, of course, 12 MMA bouts on this card. We do have to get to our prelims first. And before we get to the prelims, of course, we have to let you know who we are. Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan. I go by Harris. And Boxing MMA Picks, we are here to give you our UFC breakdown, UFC analysis, let you know which fights are worth it, which underdog picks you perhaps want to go for, and definitely which fights to kind of avoid. And then, of course, stay tuned until the end of our video where you get to hear what our favorite picks are and sort of why that is. Like I said, 12 fights on this one, 6 fights on the prelim. We're going to get right into fight number 1. In that case, we have Johnny Eduardo versus, actually, no, that one was removed. My fault. Let's go on to fight number 1, the actual fight number 1. We have Bruno Silva versus JP Buys. I'm going to talk about JP Buys first. I mean, he's pretty fast-paced. I do like his stand-up. Pretty solid, pretty quick, high-paced. He's definitely going to be somebody that's going to take you down to the ground. As you can see, they're a pretty respectable takedown average of 3.64 per fight in the UFC. He has real good wrestling, right? I mean, he has, good takedowns. He has that type of wrestling where he's going to smother you on top. He's going to keep you on the ground. He's going to wrap your leg up into half guard. Sort of that favorable UFC wrestling style that we've been seeing lately from fighters who have been winning their fights. I do like him. I mean, he could be a good prospect. He trains at a Fortis MMA, right? So they have a lot of UFC talent at that gym. So JP Buys is somebody who can really potentially make an impact in this fight and potentially in this division over time. I think he's younger as well. I think he's 25 years old, if I'm not mistaken. We have his wife fighting on the card as well, so that's going to be an interesting one. But yeah, I mean, at 24 years old, I mean, sky's potentially the limit for him. He has a style to do it. I do kind of like him. But to talk about Bruno Silva a bit, I mean, he has good movement in his own right. Fights from the outside. He's going to go for that calf kick a lot, which we've seen as a very effective approach in the UFC. I say that every episode that we do. He gets in and out with his striking, so I do like that sort of in and out, not stay in, not take a hit, just kind of hit you and get right back out type of situation that he has going on there. I've seen fighters take him down, but I've seen really good scrambling ability from him. The ability to get up when he is taken down. And he can land a takedown of his own when needed. As you can see, his own takedown average is pretty respectable at just over 3 per 15 minutes as well. I will say this, Bruno Silva definitely has faced the better competition. I mean, you go back to 2017 in LFA, he has a draw versus Casey Kenny. If you watch Silva's fight versus Ulanbekov, it could be a bit of an idea of what could happen here. Ulanbekov won that fight by landing a few more takedowns. Like I said, Silva did show an ability to get back up. I think that's pretty important to notice there because if he stuffs Buys takedowns, then we'll see what happens. And like I said, I mean, Silva in that fight, he had the better stand-up. Not by a significant margin, but he definitely did have the better stand-up in that one. And same with the David Dvorak fight, kind of the same thing. These guys both landed takedowns on Silva, and that's something I could be potentially worried about in terms of his ability to win the fight. For this fight, I do see it going back and forth a bit. I see Buys having maybe a significant wrestling advantage, despite both of their abilities to get takedowns. But I do think Bruno Silva is live here at plus 160. If he can stuff the takedowns or if he can at least use that scrambling ability to get up from the first attempt or two, it could potentially create some problems for Buys. I can't really call it a confident pick, but I will go with the newcomer Buys. Like I said, I like his stand-up. I really like his wrestling. I think he has that sort of a style that could be really good in the UFC today, at least. And I think he gets it done here versus Bruno Silva.
Yeah, it's a good fight to open up the card. I will say that I agree with you 100%. JP Buys has really good wrestling. His stand-up needs some work. What I like about him is he has a really good top game. He has good submissions. He gets finishes as well. And importantly, he has good defensive grappling, so he's able to avoid the dangers when he's in the guard. And just remember, this guy won the African wrestling title, so he's actually an accomplished wrestler back in Africa, and he has decent cardio. Bruno Silva, I'm not impressed with this guy. And again, Baez actually has the athleticism as well. But Bruno Silva, I'm not really that impressed. His stand-up, it's pretty close with JP Baez in this fight. I'm not sure who really has the better stand-up. Bruno is a black belt, but he's been submitted by Delino Lopez and Khalid Taha, but that fight was overturned, I think, due to drugs or something. So he's a black belt, but he's been submitted twice. And he himself, he's only won one fight by submission back in 2014. So JP Baez should feel comfortable going for those takedowns. He should be able to avoid the submissions. And I think this is a spot that he should win a decision. So I'm going to go JP Baez. And I wouldn't be surprised he locks in a submission as the fight goes on, because I think JP Baez has the better cardio in this fight. So, but again, that's my opinion. So, but I'll take JP Baez in this fight here, first fight of the card.
Yeah, keep your eyes on JP Baez. Like I said, at 24 years old, he could be somebody that can really be some good value for us on some future bets. So definitely pay attention to that name, and let's pay attention to how he performs in this fight. Fight number 2, we have Julija Avila versus Julija Stoliarenko. How do you feel about this one?
Man, this is a harder fight than the odds indicate. Julija Stoliarenko, I think she's a real rough fighter. She's really tough. Just remember, she's a former liftweight champion. If you don't know what that is, that's pretty much the most violent mixed martial art around. Like it's bare knuckles, headbutts, elbows, knees, everything. So she was a champion that years ago. She likes violence, is what I see here. So Stoliarenko wants a brawl. She does have jiu-jitsu as well, so she can definitely get to the ground. But her stamina's a bit sloppy, but she does have the power, and she does have a aggressive approach to it that could definitely cause Avila problems. Because Avila likes the space, Avila likes clean striking, but she could get messy. She could brawl, but I think a brawl would favor Stoliarenko. Now, I give Avila the technical advantage when it comes to the striking. I think she's just technically better, straighter punches. I think she's a better fighter on the outside. I know she lost to Eubanks. She was able to get the takedowns, but Eubanks was able to show a sizable strength advantage and was able to wrestle Julija. And pretty much she used all her strength, and Julija couldn't really handle the strength, right? So I don't think what's her name again, Stoliarenko has that strength that Eubanks has. So I see Avila keeping this on the feet, Julija, and I think she's going to actually win this fight. I think she's the more technical striker. I think she should be able to, if not finish her, I think she should win a decision here, 2 rounds at least, with the better striking, the better shots throughout the round. And I think she can get this to the ground if she wants to. I think that she's the more well-rounded fighter. So I'm going to go with her, but I think Stoliarenko is a live dog because she is so aggressive. She's well-rounded. She has some striking. She has a ground game. So she definitely has a path to win this fight. But I'm just going to go with the more polished fighter at this point, and that's Julija Avila.
Yeah, Julija Avila, I mean, she's definitely the more polished fighter. And to your point about Julija Stoliarenko's strength, in her UFC debut, I mean, she kind of caught a bad matchup facing Yana Kunitskaya. And we know that she's strong. She has that tight tie clinch against the cage. She was just able to control Stoliarenko pretty much that entire fight, right? And like you said, I mean, she has that brawling type. The interesting thing about Julija Avila is that although she doesn't really burst per se, she has that explosiveness. I mean, we saw what she did versus Gina Manzani, obviously a very different striker than even a Stoliarenko. But nonetheless, she showed that explosive capability in that fight, winning that fight in 20 seconds. And like you said, I mean, she has a good top game. She can stay on top for some ground and pound there. She can score points in that way. And I mean, the odds are garbage. Let's be honest, minus 360 for this fight is definitely not worth it. So I'm not looking to throw this on a bunch of parlays. I might even go Stoliarenko depending on what Fight Night looks like as a straight up underdog bet at plus 280. But, I do think the better fighter is going to be Julija Avila. I do think Julija Avila is going to win this fight. So she will also be my pick in this fight. Let's move on to fight number 3. We have Montel Jackson versus Jesse Strader. I'll talk a bit about Montel Jackson first. I mean, first of all, he's 9-2, right? I mean, a big favorite on this card, minus 575. When you look at his 2 losses, his only 2 losses are against Brett Johns and Ricky Simon. So, quality losses from that perspective. A pretty young prospect, has some decent wins on his resume. Brian Kelleher, Andre Sukumtath, definitely some decent fights on his resume as well. He's kind of methodical, right? He has that methodical stand-up style, well-paced striking. He kind of picks his shots really well. Has really big hands and definitely has some pop for sure. I saw some good takedown defense from him. Good takedowns in his own right, as you see there. Over 4 per fight at almost 80% takedown accuracy. That definitely means something. He's physically strong for the division. And again, like I said, I like his wrestling. I like his clinch game. I like sort of that aspect of his game. When you watch his fight versus Brett Johns, I mean, Johns had a game plan and he showed a potential path to victory, to beating Montel Jackson. It involved smothering him. It involved a lot of clinching against the cage. It involved, taking away his length. At 75-inch reach, he's going to have that reach advantage often in a 135-pound division. He took that away from Montel Jackson, right? He took away that reach, took away that sort of power, being at the tipping end of Montel Jackson's power. He took that away from him, right? But I will say, Jesse Strader doesn't have that style. He has solid stand-up. I like that he goes to the body with his punches. That usually shows a higher IQ from the fighter's end. And he has good takedowns in his own right. But, I just don't see him winning this. I'll keep it simple in terms of analysis on who's going to win. I just don't see him winning this. I just think Montel Jackson is the better fighter. I don't like minus 575. I mean, I would have even taken a minus 400. But nonetheless, Montel Jackson is my pick on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Montel Jackson here as well. He only loses to fighters that have good wrestling and have really good cardio, right? So in this fight, I don't think Jesse can maintain, if he's able to even get him on the ground, I don't think he can maintain that for more than a round. And I don't even see this fight going to the ground. Montel Jackson has decent wrestling, way better stand-up, more tools. I like him in this spot. Montel's my pick to win that.
Fight number 4 in that case, Trevin Giles versus Roman Dolidze. Why don't you take this one off? Tell me how you feel.
Okay. I think this is probably one of the harder fights on this card. Roman Dolidze, he's a big guy, man. He came from the 205-pound division. I think 205, and this is his first fight at 185. So he's going to be, and he was a big 205er in my opinion. So he's going to be really, really big here. He's going to have the size advantage. He's actually a grappler. He's been in grappling tournaments. He's done well in some of these tournaments as well. But he likes to stand. He likes to stand up and fight. He wants to knock people out. But he does have that high-level jiu-jitsu in his back pocket, right? So, or his high-level grappling, whatever it is that he's doing, that's submitting these guys. He has a good heel hook. He has good submissions in general. He's fighting Trevin Giles, though, a guy that is, in my opinion, is a smoother stand-up fighter. Trevin Giles arguably has the better stand-up here. He has fought the much better fighters here. When you look at who Dolidze fought, he beat John Allen in a split decision. That was a really close fight. And he beat Kadris Ibrahimov, but who hasn't beat him, right? I think he lost every fight he had in the UFC. So aside from that, he doesn't really have any marquee names or any marquee guys on his record. Yes, he's undefeated, so he's definitely going to be fighting with a purpose here. He should win this fight. He's going to be the bigger guy, bigger bones. He might just knock out Trevin Giles, because we've seen Trevin Giles get hurt before. If you watch that Zach Cummins fight, he got dropped and then submitted. So that's always a concern when you pick Trevin Giles, is that as the fight goes on as well, if he doesn't win the first 2 rounds, as the fight goes on, he's not the best third-round fighter. But in this spot, I'm going to take a shot. Again, I'm not putting a bet on this fight. I think this fight is really, really close. But I'm going to go with the underdog here. I'm going to take Trevin Giles to pull off an upset, take Dolidze's O. Again, Dolidze should win this fight. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, but for some reason, I feel Trevin Giles, that smoother stand-up. I think he has decent wrestling to keep us on the feet. If you go in the first 2 rounds, I think this is his fight. So I'm going to go Trevin Giles being the better, slicker stand-up guy, and I think he can keep us on the feet.
I think what the key is in this fight, and I think maybe something that you didn't mention, but maybe something that you're thinking, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, Roman Dolidze just doesn't have the highest IQ. He clearly has a ground advantage. And I wouldn't say clearly because Trevin Giles is very solid wrestler in his own right, pretty good wrestler actually, I should say. But with Dolidze, again, he should be the bigger guy, like you said. He has world and European grappling championships, so he's very adept on the ground. And even if you watch his fights, I mean, he'll welcome it to the ground. He'll take guard. He'll be willing to grapple. He'll stay on his back. But the thing with him is that he has this weird obsession with sort of impressing the crowd and kind of, he'll be talking to his coaches. You want me to sub him now? And then doesn't end up getting the submission. So I am a little worried about his IQ. I do think that this is kind of his fight to lose. I think it's sort of a bad matchup for Trevin Giles because even though Giles has that wrestling in his own right, again, Dolidze is going to be the bigger fighter, the physically stronger fighter, that Georgian smothering style of wrestling with world-class grappling. It doesn't really sound like the best matchup there. And for Giles, I mean, his stand-up is slightly better, but I wouldn't say significantly better in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, I like Dolidze in this matchup as long as he doesn't do anything stupid. I hope protecting his O is a reason not to do anything stupid. That said, I can't fully trust him to not do anything stupid, but I'm still going to pick him in this fight. I think he has the advantages. I think he has the path to victory. And again, I think he gets it done. Trevin Giles is not the most reliable fighter to bet on. So with the odds being this close, minus 140, I actually do like the value here that Roman Dolidze provides. And he's going to be my pick as well. In that case, let's move on to fight number 5. We have Leonardo Santos versus Grant Dawson. Taking a look at Grant Dawson, I mean, I like his calf kick. He uses it a lot. It's really effective. I like his wrestling. Watch his fight versus Ned Nirimani. He was able to get him down. He was able to establish, pretty good positioning in that fight as well. And, I mean, who he trains with kind of speaks for itself, right? He trains with James Krause, so he's going to have a legitimate ground game. Beat guys like Derek Minner. We know that Minner probably not the best wrestling, but definitely going to go for that sub attempt. He's faced guys and proven his ability with his wrestling, so I do like that from him. When I take a look at Leonardo Santos, I mean he's tall for the division, 6 feet, 6'1", something like that. Fights pretty tall in the stand-up as well. I think he has decent striking, counter striker, more of a counter striker on the feet. Not really going to go for it first, but definitely going to counter fight. And I think he has some good takedown defense. So it's going to be interesting to see Grant Dawson go for that takedown. And it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Leonardo Santos can stop that. He has a good ground game, has a good grappling in his own right. Leonardo Santos, I mean, he intrigues me because he's old, right? He's 41 years old. But he appears relatively fresh in the ring. He has, a pretty lengthy winning streak. If we see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fights. His last loss was in 2013. Not the most active fighter, obviously, that being said. But nonetheless, I mean, still finds ways to win fights, even at 41 years old. His last fight was in 2020, so it's not even like he's inactive or anything along those lines. I will say this fight is definitely one of the tougher fights on the card for me, at least. I don't love Grant Dawson at minus 215. I do think that's a little too steep. He probably should be somewhere in the minus 150, minus 140 area. But that said, I mean, I do like Grant Dawson in this one. I do expect him to be a bit more deliberate on the feet. Santos doesn't really have that sense of direction on the feet sometimes. So I do look for Grant Dawson to be a little bit more deliberate, both on the feet and on the ground, and look to win this fight.
Yeah, this fight is, I get what you're saying, whereas this could be a tough fight to predict here, because with Santos, arguably he's the But he's definitely the better striker, and he knows how to win fights. He hasn't lost a single fight in the UFC. That fight you brought up was an exhibition on the Ultimate Fighter, so that's not even a professional fight. But yeah, he's undefeated, has one draw in the UFC. This guy knows how to win. At his age, he only fights like once a year or so. So yeah, his body hasn't taken that toll, but he's been out for a minute. So when you look at the new way people are fighting, you brought up the calf kicks, and as you mentioned, Dawson was implementing that in his last fight. I'm not sure if Santos is ready for these calf kicks, because I know it's a pretty new thing now that everyone does now. So that's something I think he has to watch out for, because in the stand-up, I think Santos definitely has the advantage, but that calf kick gives Dawson something to utilize that I think Santos doesn't really use that much of. So I think what the fight comes down to is this. I think that Santos can finish him in the first round if he catches him. But as the fight goes on, second, third round, Santos, he gets really tired, and Dawson does not get tired. That guy, he's still going for takedowns late in the second round, right? And I see cardio being the reason for my pick here. I think that even if Santos is the better fighter, based on their skill set, I think after that first round, Dawson's going to have easy takedowns in. I think he's going to put a hurt in. He has really good top pressure, top game. And even though Santos is a black belt, I think Dawson's youth, I think his strength can keep him down, and his know-how. So I like Dawson in this spot, banking on his cardio, decision type of fight, Grant Dawson.
Sounds good. So let's move on to the final fight of the prelims. We have Marion Reneau versus Macy Chiasson. How you feel about this one?
Man, I'll be honest, I didn't put much work on this fight. I know we studied this fight previously. My previous video, I picked Marion Reneau. I watched a couple more fights, looked into some more things. I think Marion Reneau still is the better fighter, but I think the youth might be a factor here. I think Macy can just hold her against the cage, clinch her, use her height, use her youth, and I think she should have better cardio here as well. The younger fighter, I'm going to go with Marion. I'm going to go with Macy Chiasson here to win the fight here, decision type of fight. I think she's going to be able to hold her against the cage, use her size, lean on her, and use that clinch.
Yeah, this fight was supposed to happen quite some time ago. I think it was well over a month ago at this point. So we did end up reviewing that. I'll repeat some of the notes that we had from that. To your point, though, I do agree with the Macy Chiasson pick. That was my pick as well when we initially reviewed this. But what I was looking at with Macy Chiasson was, to your point, she's tall, she's aggressive, she's younger, she has that pressure striking, she has long punches, she's willing to engage, comes forward a lot, right? So it's going to be a real question of, can Marion Reneau handle that pace at 43 years old? Of course, one of the oldest fighters in the UFC. You have to ask yourself if she can take on that pace. She will, Macy Chiasson will attempt the takedown, but more so uses her frame to kind of holly home you and just kind of keep you against the cage. Her in general, she's a little bit sloppy, so I can see where Reneau could have advantages. Reneau has decent boxing, decent kickboxing, decent movement, decent use of the jab. Reneau is a bit tighter, right? A bit more sound, a bit more technically sound. But again, just to keep this one on the shorter end of the review, I am going to go with Macy Chiasson as well. Reneau has been overwhelmed in the past, right? Whether it's via outstriking her, whether it's sort of aggressively clinching, whether it's working the ground game. And Chiasson is that exact type of fighter. So again, I'm banking on youth as well. I do think the style matchup favors Chiasson in this one. I mean, she might even win via TKO in ground and pound. Maybe she doesn't necessarily hurt Reneau, but just the accumulation of strikes or a body lock or what have you might just land her the TKO in this one. So I'm going to go with Macy Chiasson on this one as well. Although, again, she's not a guaranteed pick per se, but I do like her in this one, banking on the youth. Let's take this one to Vegas, and let's kind of keep it real simple in Vegas this week. You want to go favorite first, or you want to go underdog first?
All right, so my favorite pick on that early card, obviously Montel Jackson. Obviously, like the odds don't make sense. Montel Jackson would be the first one, and the second one would be I think JP buys. I like JP buys.
Yeah, I think that's a real solid one. JP Buys. JP Buys is really talented. I really like him as a prospect. My favorite pick, again, outside of Montel Jackson, not quite worth those odds. My favorite might surprise you a bit. I'm gonna go with Dolidze. I think this is really his fight to lose, and I think that he wants to protect that. Oh, I think he has the better tools to win this one, and I think he gets it done. So, two pretty solid favorite picks there. Not big favorites in their own right. So, even as some straight up bets, they could have some value. Let's give them an underdog pick, or let's say maybe which underdog is probably has the best chance of winning on this ticket in your eyes, or on this undercard in your eyes.
For me, that's Trevin Giles. Like I think that's a coin flip fight.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be a hard fight. I don't know which way it's gonna go. Roman, I think, should win that fight, but Trevin, man, he's hard to beat, right? So I'm gonna go Trevin Giles.
Fair enough. And for myself, this one's kind of hard to say. I think, I mean, I think that Stoliarenko fight, man. I mean, that fight is not guaranteed for Avila at all, and there's huge underdog upside for Stoliarenko in this one. I'm not going to say it can go either way. Like I said, I do expect Avila to win the fight. But when I think about underdogs, I'm not really loving the other picks here. So, I mean, I think in this fight, to some degree, I wouldn't be surprised if Stoliarenko pulled it out. And that's all the way at plus 275. So a lot of value there. Let's end it there. Prelims, like we said, UFC Fight Night, aka UFC Vegas 22. We want you guys to do all that algorithmic stuff that helps us out. Like, rate, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, share with anyone that you know that needs betting advice. And let's have a real good conversation in the comments. Tell me who are your favorite picks? Who are your underdog picks? Do you have a parlay going into this weekend? Let's have all of that conversation in the comments. In the meantime, hit that bell, hit the notification bell, so you know exactly when we upload new prediction videos. And listen, man, let's end it there. We know we got the main card coming up next, so I will end it there. Of course, I go by the name of Harris. He goes by the name of Zan. We are Boxing MMA Picks. And again, UFC Fight Night, aka UFC Vegas 22. Derek Brunson versus Kevin Holland. Let's make this money.
Let's get it.